We're recording.
Hey everybody, we've been on a little hiatus. We got a little busy, but we're back, and this is I don't even know what episode of Queerintine, but welcome. Might be 5 or 6.
5, 12, 29, 32.
Sometime in between the first one we did and the last one we will do.
Yeah.
Which is way far from now. So Crystal's here with me as usual, and we're kicking off today with a very fun topic, veganism.
Bum, 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 bum.
No lesbians are vegan because we all eat fish, but
actually I am I'm very much omnivorous, but I am also a vegetarian. So as always, go ahead.
We thought it would be fun to go back and forth because I am pescatarian, which means the only animal meat I consume is fish or seafood. And then I'm also lactose intolerant, so I don't eat a whole lot of dairy. And Crystal is steak all the way.
As I enjoy my cheese and pepperoni stromboli, that has no F's given. I'm sorry. I appreciate very much.
And I'm eating air.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've spent time with Claire. I mean, I've seen her eat, and it's very, shrimp and fish and lots of plants. And I mean, a balanced diet is, we eat plants, broccoli, cauliflower, spinach, kale, arugula. I mean, plants are wonderful. I believe in a well-balanced diet. When you eat, for me personally, a well-balanced diet feels remarkable. Getting in plenty of proteins and iron and fiber and leafy greens and eating fruits instead of chocolate and junk. And I am a total believer in a well-balanced diet, but I just have some, and we'll talk about it in a little bit, but with my nutritionist, I have a reason why he didn't have me go vegan or vegetarian, which is good, because if I couldn't occasionally have bacon, I would probably kill somebody. But people are really, they misunderstand things.
He did kill something.
Yeah, well, yeah. So I thought, Claire, maybe we could kind of help people understand what's a pescatarian, what's a vegetarian, maybe you want to talk a bit about what the different common types of diets are, and maybe we can educate people a little bit on, what they are.
Yeah. So I've been a vegetarian for many years, or pescatarian. I often say vegetarian because pescatarian is a less known term. So sometimes you might hear people say they're vegetarian, and really it's just an easier way of encompassing a broad number of diets often that can fall under vegetarianism. But truly the word I am is a pescatarian.
Does that mean that vegetarians eat no meat, which includes any kind of seafood? So it's like when...
Yeah, so if you're a true vegetarian, then you don't eat any meat.
Okay.
If you're a vegan, then you eat no animal byproducts whatsoever. There are some vegans that are so strict they will not even eat honey.
I had quite the encounter with a lot of those lately.
So I think for some people, like it's helpful to know that, like, I think it's common to say like vegan or vegetarian, or it's often to be like vegans only eat like cauliflower, but there's actually like a whole wide range of diets that fall under that scope. And that scope is called, that kind of wider arc of like pescatarian, vegetarian, vegan is called plant-based eating. And so it's often a little bit easier, and a lot of the literature that's coming out is now called a plant-based diet. And part of the reason they did that is that there's kind of this false assumption that just because you're vegan or vegetarian, you eat healthy. But like, I know a lot of vegans and vegetarian friends that like, they eat junk. I mean, you could roll into like Taco Bell and get a bean and cheese burrito, and that's totally within a vegan diet. I mean, a vegetarian diet, not a vegan diet. But so I think there was kind of this assumption that like vegetarians eat healthy and eating vegetarian is healthy. But the truth is that unless you're eating a plant-based diet where it's coming mostly from whole foods, vegetables, whole grains, good proteins, versus like processed food and like, oh, I can eat Cheez-Its because they're not vegetarian, or I can eat, there's a whole range of things you can eat as a vegetarian that aren't healthy for you. So there's been kind of this movement in recent years to separate the two and use plant-based eating to talk about it when we mean it as a health thing or an environmental thing.
Yeah, because I've seen vegan. I mean, you can have Oreos and beer, and technically they're,
Yeah,
there's
you
a.
can be a vegetarian and eat like crap.
Oh yeah, vegans too. I mean, I've seen foods that are
Yeah,
vegan that
for
are
sure.
not. So why is it specifically that seafood is the only meat that you consume? What is the reasoning behind that?
So for me, it's just that seafood is a little bit easier to get sustainably and wild sourced. It's still difficult and there still is a lot of seafood farming, but it's a hell of a lot easier than like, I found this cow on the side of the highway who was
Gotcha.
free.
So for you,
It's about access.
so for you, it is somewhat ethics based. You.
Mine is completely ethics based,
Okay.
but I think it's not what a lot of people think. So I run into a lot of people that it's coming from a place of like, well, you just think we're all killing animals, or like, we have that kind of PETA image of like throwing pig blood onto like women in fur coats. And I think for me, it's more about like the way we farm meat in this country is unsustainable environmentally. It uses way too much water. We're just not doing it as a sustainable practice. And I also believe that the way we're doing it, large in part, is very inhumane to the animals themselves. So if you are like a hunter and you want to go out and shoot a deer and feed your whole family with that and use every part of the animal, I am so for that. It makes me sad and it's hard. And I don't know that I would have the ability to do that. But I think what a lot of people misunderstand is that a lot of vegetarians and vegans, their issue is with capitalistic and industrialized practices and how they could be done better. There was this amazing woman named Temple Brandon. She is an autistic woman who kind of revolutionized the cattle industry and came in and made it more humane in the way that they send cows to slaughter. She's great to read up on if you're not sure of like farming practices or cattle practices. And then the other important factor is environmental. Like 50%, I think it's like 50% of the beef we produce in this country goes to waste. So it was like those lives were lost for nothing. And we also put in a ton of like just carbon output onto something that like we're not even feeding people. So we're overproducing.
Well,
And it's just greedy.
Restaurants give you more than 2 times the amount of food you can eat. I mean, that's the problem we have going out to restaurants is it's so much food. We can't eat it. I mean, I was born and raised a hunter. My grandfather who raised me on a ranch was a 3rd generation cattle farmer. I grew up where we raised our food. You gardened, you grew your food. You didn't go to the grocery store for a lot of stuff. We also grew up poor, but because we lived in the country, being poor, that meant you don't ask for stuff at the grocery store. Like we grow our food. I mean, I've had to, I don't prefer it. I don't enjoy being the one that has to do it, but I've had to participate in killing my food. And I can definitely tell you there are and some vegans will never agree that any of it is remotely humane, but I can tell you from what I have seen and the documentaries I've seen on some of these awful, barbaric, very capitalist meat farming operations is that you can end something very swiftly, very quick, super quick. I mean, there are ways that you can do things with as limited amount of pain and suffering as possible. And that's how even now, a deer, and we don't have huge deer in Florida, but one deer per hunting season.
Feed your family for quite a while with that meat from the freezer. Yeah.
It's cheaper. There's also, it's expensive to eat organic. It can be expensive to eat healthy. GMOs and processed foods are popular because they're cheap. Meat that's filled with bovine growth hormone and nitrogen so it looks fresher longer is popular because it's cheaper. So when you go out and you get a boar or a deer, we eat, the dogs eat, it was a very quick, clean process.
Yeah.
That animal didn't have all this crap in their system. You know, we go to a local butcher when we do buy meat, and it comes from a local farm. It grazes, it has a happy animal life. It happens quick. I mean, we know where our meat comes from. We are very much meat consumers, but we don't support what we think is just super cruel and inhumane. But then there are vegans that I've encountered recently that think all of it is cruel and inhumane and there's no justification for it. So that's just going to be a difference of opinion. Do you think that's why when you say the word vegan, a lot of people go, oh, like they have a bad, do you have anything to chime in on that there?
Yeah, I think there's two things. I think there are some hardcore vegan groups out there that are very fear-mongering and not open-minded. But I think the second thing is that on the flip side of that coin, there's a lot of people that don't even want to take the time to learn, and they just hear vegan and push that on to someone else because they're uncomfortable with questioning their own choices.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't want to have to like think about where their meat comes from, right?
Right.
Largely as Americans, like we're very uncomfortable with like where our food comes from. And so I think like I'm not here to like preach to you if you should eat meat or not. My wife eats meat when we go out to eat, like it doesn't matter. But I am here to say like just question. And that should be true of all food. Always question where your food is coming from. But particularly with meat, I feel like there's not space to have that conversation. And part of that is because there's very polarized groups on both sides, right?
Yeah. And you know, the whole thing started where one of the ways I like to spoil my wife is through food. I hate baking, but I love grilling, and I just enjoy being in the kitchen making foods that I know she will enjoy. I'm a picky eater, she's not. So I really, really love not using recipes and just putting all these flavors together and having her go, oh my God, this is so good. Like I love getting that reaction. God, I got so off topic because I almost got a little bit wet hearing myself talk about my food. I'm getting I mean, but,
I'm going to do this for my wife later and
oh yeah,
don't like me.
So I posted a picture of a breakfast sandwich I made her on Instagram that people can do if they have some, you know, maybe leftover biscuits or some leftover this. And these people that I didn't know flooded my direct messages, my DMs. They hit up my DMs in a bad kind of way on Instagram. And it was just, you're an awful person. They saw that I owned animals and said, we hope that your animals die. You don't deserve to own animals. All animals should be free in the wild. And I'm thinking like, my animals are rescues. My dog literally beat cancer twice from a plant-based diet with lots of meat protein. Like we're not awful animal owners. We're not awful people. We don't lack quality ethics just because we eat meat. And that was kind of eye-opening for me to see this experience is what happens with people in and out of this community.
Well, and I think it's kind of like, it's like politics with Facebook. Only the people who ardently and fervently disagree with you and have no interest in having a conversation are the people that reach out. So it's like, as someone who sits on the other side of the camp in that as you, like, I would never hop on there and be like, you're a horrible person. So like the loudest, you know, voices are often the most polarized in my experience.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's part of why that like whole vegan attitude comes from, is because like they're the ones like out evangelizing, which is the same as like, you know, Christian groups that like protest against gay marriage or like, you know, what have you. It's always a small minority that are being the loudest that get heard the most.
Well, we're seeing that now, the current political climate, you know, with the Black Lives Matter movement, we're seeing, I mean, we have two really loud voices completely on opposite sides. And there's so many people in the middle saying, stop, wait, we want to be together.
And not to get too far into that, but yeah, it's true. There's always the most vocal are kind of the ones in the wings, in my experience.
And it taught me that everything is political. I don't care what it is. Everything has some kind of political influence. I mean,
what
everything.
Really taught me is that I need to speak more. Like we need more people who are balanced, who are coming with, these are the facts. This is what's true. This is what isn't true. Like, we need more people in that center being louder.
Yeah, I mean, and when I went through health complications and liver failure, and I mean, I was dying, and things were really, really, really bad. And I went to a nutritionist who practices medicine that's very common in China, and he does some things that I think a lot of American people would go, that's not medicine. That's, I had to go in with an open mind. It was very, very different than a traditional experience you'll get with a Western doctor.
You went to a naturopath?
And, he saved my life. And
Yeah.
he said, a lot of times I put people on a vegetarian diet in the beginning just to get all their organs clean. Some people discovered that meat is just harder for me to process. It makes me feel sluggish. Everybody's a little different. Some people, I have friends that are vegetarian because they absolutely hate meat. They don't like the texture. They don't like the taste. They don't like the way it feels. That's fine. If he said, if you have any kind of ethics, we can look at a vegan diet. I needed so much iron and I wasn't absorbing it from non-heme sources. So we pretty quickly ruled out that vegan was going to be a viable option for me because, vegans have to supplement their diets. And he just taught me that it's really important to have a balance. And for me, meat works well. I don't actually really care for red meat. If I could have my way, I wouldn't need to eat steak. I could live the rest of my life without eating a steak or pork chop. And ground beef is okay, but I incorporate it into my diet for the iron. And that's what works for me. So I think if it works for you, that's great. But I understand where vegans are coming from. If you see somebody's going to run into a burning building, do you let them run into a burning building and get burnt? Or do you scream, hey, that's a burning building, don't go in? So because their vegan diets worked so well for them, they believe it's going to work for everybody else too. And they're just trying to advocate, except sometimes people do that a little too forcefully, a little too rudely.
Yeah. I want to go back to because what I think is hilarious is that this woman told you that dogs need to be let out into the wild. And I want to talk about this argument a little bit because it's ridiculous. This kind of idea that all of our dogs came from wolves and they're wild animals. And it's so not only just doesn't even look at the medical science of how we got domesticated dogs that we currently have and the history of that and stuff, but it's also just so ridiculous.
I mean, my dogs are happy, and I could understand. I don't know what this woman's name is, and her Instagram username was very generic. It was like Rose Pix, and her picture, everything she posted was very generic, so you wouldn't be able to find out who she is, which just leads me to believe that she's probably just kind of being a keyboard warrior. But she was the worst. I don't know, but she was the worst among all the people that were like, you don't care about your health, you're eating meat, blah, 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 blah. But she said, how can you have rescue animals? How can you have animals and love them, but you don't? I was like, I love cows. I think they're adorable and they have really cute noses, but I'm sorry, they're also delicious. And I'm allowed to feel that way. I'm allowed to, and
threatening your animals and it's so fear mongering.
It is.
I also just think the argument's hilarious because it's not based on fact. Your dog can't survive in the wild. It doesn't know how. It hasn't known how for hundreds and hundreds of years. And most breeds have never even been in the wild.
I can tell you right now, the scruffy cats that are feral in my neighborhood are not as happy as these fat bastards.
They're not having a good time
in my house. My animals are my children, and I had to take a step back because I don't like to discuss heated things when I'm emotional, because that's when you say things that you don't mean. But that was a little bit, okay, I can't really take this seriously. And I have posted on social media my complete disgust for what happened to George Floyd and with all that. And I have a friend who's vegan, super nice guy, but I don't think he realized it was extremely insensitive to say, how is that one black man's life worth more than a cow?
Oh,
I don't even know how that would be a question.
totally inappropriate.
But I told him, I said, I think that your
He
ethics
sounds like
tell.
he has a lot of things he needs to work out.
Well, I mean, according to his ethics, that's the right comment to make. But I said, I don't think in this political climate that comment would go well. If you, I mean, go share that with the Black community. I think they're going to push back because I think it's insensitive, but you may not see it's insensitive because to you, it meets your ethics. So I think if everybody could just try and understand a little bit where people are coming from, and maybe if everybody just wouldn't be so pushy, like
Yeah.
you said, because there's health benefits that can be shared that we can learn about. But it was pretty, this girl was saying some pretty
She just
wild
lost
shit.
it. Yeah, she just
Yeah.
totally lost it.
She told me that she could live the rest of her life eating nothing but sweet potatoes.
That sounds so sad.
Sweet potato, like you don't, there's no,
They're a superfood, Crystal.
I know that, but we need,
Cheating.
I mean, my wife can eat 3 ounces of salmon and, she can get more zinc and selenium and protein than she's going to get in 2
Yeah.
cups of
Yeah,
leafy
no one thinks you
greens.
should be eating sweet potatoes solely.
Yeah.
Except
So,
for
that was our thought is if people who eat a vegan diet need supplements that should come from meat sources, and people who, by the way, I want to point out, I also know somebody who exclusively only eats meat. They will not eat vegetables.
Yeah, there's
They,
a movement for that. They
uh-huh.
documented like a family in Iowa that like all they
Yep.
eat is
All they
steak.
eat is
And
meat.
mhm.
And
Yeah,
that's,
there's definitely a contingency
it's
of those
fine
types
if
of
that
eaters.
works for you, but those people also need plant-based supplements. So the way I look at it is that most people are probably going to need plants. I mean, all of this sparked me to do some research, and I think the answer lies in bugs. If you think about it, it's sustainable to
Hmm.
produce bugs in greater quantity. And in lots of parts of the world where their main access is plant-based diet, they get a lot of the other nutrients they need from consuming bugs.
Hmm.
So I look at it and I go, the good thing that came out of this is that I'm kind of for this whole, like, maybe we can look at using bugs more, which I did consult some vegans and they said, no, bugs are sentient beings. You can't eat them either. Okay, but
Vegans, yeah, you're not going to change their minds on that. Like veganism won't expand to other proteins. It just is what it is. But definitely, like I've had bugs and cicadas and crickets, and they're an excellent source of protein. What's fascinating now is in kind of the like pescatarian community, these kind of like cricket based protein based like protein bars are popping up, and like protein powders, because obviously cricket bodies are very easy to like ground into a powder. So it is like a fascinating area, and certainly those have been proteins in lots of communities for a long time. So it's not a new idea, but I think you're right, it is growing. The concept growing here, and these are like very sustainable things to farm, right? It's pretty sustainable to farm a bunch of crickets. So it's like that's the interesting side of that too. The other fascinating thing to me, and the reason they're researching those types of proteins as well, is because if we do ever decide to like colonize Mars or whatever, and I'm not giving my opinion here on that, but like we will need to be able to take smaller size. You can't put like 900 cows onto a rocket ship, but you could put thousands of crickets. So it is interesting.
it is. You look at China, and I think most of the world can look at the wet market practices and just go, oh God. But think about that. They're 100 square miles larger than the United States with over 1.2 billion people. They do not have the land mass to produce meat and plant-based. It's sustainability, not just with meat, even plants, the non-genetically modified plants. So as the need grows for plant-based, we're going to grow in our use of GMOs. For my wife and I, we don't do very well on soy, particularly genetically modified soy, and that's a big component of vegan diets. So, I
It
mean,
can be.
Can be.
I think there's this kind of idea of like, oh, all vegans eat like soy and eggplants, and I think that used to be true, but we don't personally eat a lot of soy in our household.
The ones I talk
It's
to
soy.
consume a
Soy is
lot of
not
soy.
soy is not that great for women. I think there's been a lot of awareness around that in recent years, at least in the communities I'm in. That's why like almond milk and coconut milk and all those kind of like alternatives arose where they weren't really available for a while. But
I love
yeah,
me some
there's
almond
definitely
milk.
like I know, right? The best.
It goes so hard though. And oat milk, y'all. I
That's my
mean,
newest obsession.
we're
That's
gonna
my newest
start.
obsession.
We are gonna start because all this, those vegans that were mean to me, the ones of you that are my friends, and the ones to you that I don't know. What came out of this also is we're going to start making our own almond and cashew milk. We're looking it up, and we're starting a raised container garden on the side of our house so that we can be more proactive and more sustainable and have access to healthier plant-based foods. We're super excited about that. But I'm still on the movement that we need to call it almond water because I ain't never seen a nut with a titty. So I'm always going to kind of try to make that like, I mean, it's water. It's water.
Yeah.
It's mushy, fucking blended water.
Have you made it from scratch? Because then when you make it from scratch, you realize that you don't put that many almonds in it.
Not yet, but we are working on it.
It really is mostly water. That doesn't mean it doesn't have nutritional benefits,
but it goes so hard though. Cause see, cow milk make my stomach hurt. I don't be liking the cow's milk. And it's actually, except when it comes directly from a cow. Go to the local farm and get a little squirt out of that. Doesn't hurt my tummy.
Well, that's because it hasn't been like processed and bleached and
there
like gone through all the pasteurizing.
Yep. We get eggs from a friend's farm. I despise eggs. Cannot stand eggs. I cannot stand the taste. I cannot stand the smell. If I use store-bought eggs to like bread, fish, or chicken, it hurts my stomach. I use eggs from my friend's farm, no issues. So I don't know. We're all different. And
all different. Do what feels good for your body. Do what feels good for your conscience.
Exactly.
And stop within your values.
It's a Friday and I'm allowed, so this feels good to me now. So we'll wrap this up so we don't spend too much time. Why don't you close us out since you have way more experience in diets than me, because I just kind of eat. I mean, I still eat everything.
Yeah, it was just like do your research. That's what I had to do. So it was hard earned, and I did my own independent research, and then I made my choices based on what felt good for my values and who I am and what feels good in my body. And I would encourage other people to do the same and take all of those resources that you're spending screaming at people on Facebook on both sides and go read. Yeah. Read a book. Forks Over Knives is an excellent, well-balanced resource about the plant-based movement. There's also a movie, if you don't like to read, it's on Netflix. You can just watch it and start there. And one of the reasons I like Forks Over Knives is it's not the whole like meat your meat, like fear mongering where they just show you these awful and atrocious images. So start with Forks Over Knives and I wish you well on your journey. Let us know if you have any questions in the comments.
Yeah, and definitely if you are vegan or vegetarian or pescatarian and you want to share links to resources, books, names of documentaries, pop that below. If you are vegan, cool. I appreciate your ethics, but I'm not a shitty person. So stop beating
her up.
Yeah, stop beating me up. Like, get off my pee-pee and go beat somebody else up. All right. Bye for now.